We're going to delve a lot more into this very issue regarding the U.S. measures that have been taken by President Donald Trump, and does it really have an effect on our country, Ghana, even though some African countries have been mentioned, and that has to do with Sudan, Somalia, and then let's look at some of the other countries involved here. And we have Libya, Syria, Iraq, Iran, and as well as Yemen. But I also do have a studio guest this afternoon who will have an interaction with me on this very issue. That's Sheikh Amir Shaibu. He's a spokesperson, National Chief Imam, Head, Islamic Education Unit of the Ghana Education Service. And let's take you back to that very executive order. What is this order about? It brings in suspension of U.S. refugee admissions program for 120 days, indefinite ban on Syrian refugees and anyone arriving from 7 Muslim majority countries that, like I mentioned earlier on, Iraq, Syria, Iran, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and Yemen, face a 90-day visa suspension, and some visa categories such as diplomats and the UN are not included in the suspension. And globally, there has been an outcry regarding this specific measure that has been taken by the President of the United States. And who are those affected? All travelers who have nationality or dual nationality of Iran, Iraq, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, Syria, and Yemen are not permitted to enter the U.S. for 90 days or be issued an immigrant or non-immigrant visa. And this includes those who share dual nationality with allied countries, including the UK, that's the United Kingdom, although Canada has been told its dual nationals are not affected. So more on this very measure. And what is President Trump saying about this? He says, this is not a Muslim ban, as the media is falsely reporting. This is not about religion. This is about terror and keeping our country safe. Well, according to President Trump, the media is falsifying what the executive order has stated rightly, that this is not about religion, but it's about keeping their country safe. And like I mentioned earlier, I do have in the studio Sheikh Amir Shaibu, spokesperson, National Chief Imam, Head, Islamic Education Unit of the Ghana Education Service. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And thanks for your time.
Thank you for
now, let me start from where I took off, or ended, rather. We did hear President Trump saying that this is not a Muslim ban, as the media is falsely reporting. It is not about religion, but about terror and keeping America safe. What do you make of this?
Well, it sounds like a kind of a U-turn on the whole. Trump came with a mentality, and he did not mince words in his campaign messages. When I listened to him during his victory or inaugural speech, sounded so conciliatory, and it gave hope that he was not going to be arbitrary or sound arbitrary in the way that he wants to deal with the issue. But now he categorizes certain countries that are necessarily Muslim countries that are known not to have a certain serious records of terrorism. It appears to me that Trump himself has not good appreciation of terrorism and what brings about terrorism and what to do to deal with it.
Sheikh, if I can cut you there, these countries that we've mentioned, yes, there have been some acts of terrorism, and we've seen some citizens of these countries go elsewhere to cause mayhem and chaos.
Right.
Now, he's mentioning rightly that it's about keeping his country safe. Other countries can do same if they want to. And they've done their very own assessment. That was done before the government before his. That's Obama's administration. And now it's about implementing. Has he done wrong? Are you disappointed?
I think he has the option also to look at whatever policy or the regime before him wanted to do. Because it is about the long-term peace of the world and the safety of America. The peace and the safety that we are talking about is not, it will sound myopic and selfish for any one country in the world to think about its peace and safety alone, and without understanding the logics of the process that takes to guarantee a global peace of the world. How can America feel safe if the rest of the world are not safe? And so for me, that's why I keep on saying that from the approach that Trump is adopting, I have a strong feeling that he comes with emotional prejudice. He does not have a full appreciation of terrorism, what it means, and how to deal with it.
Okay, now let's move to Ghana. And definitely we have some Ghanaians living in these 7 countries that are involved in this very situation. Now, how difficult will this be for them?
Well, except if they still harbor the inkling or the desire to want to travel to the US.
So you think they should totally forget about it for now?
Like as a Muslim in Ghana, if for one or two any other reason I'm banned from going to the US, what does it mean to me? I'm a citizen of my country. I have a country in which I'm so confident in. For me, the US is not a Mecca for me as a Muslim. In other words, for me as a Muslim, if I have to travel to Saudi Arabia, it is because it is cardinal to my religious life. And if I miss it, I miss something spiritual and religious. But what about if I'm banned from going to the US? What does it mean to me?
Is it that because you probably don't have any business doing there, or you don't have something of importance to you? That's why you freely talk about this. There's some who would argue against what you're saying.
Exactly. I know, because if people seek their survival in the US, and they think that that is the only way, the only country in which they can survive. And I think as human beings, we should be able to open up our horizon. There are still people who are surviving in other countries other than the US, and they are making it. And God did not make us as people to be restricted in our movement and our survival needs in the way we pursue them. So I think that we must be confident in ourselves. What I will propose to the US and to all world bodies is to continue the fight in the long term against terrorism. If you take Iran, if you take Syria, and all other Muslim countries that have been categorized, find out in those countries what percentage of the population of those countries are involved in terrorism. There are people in those same countries that are opposed to terrorism, and there are a lot of Muslims of the world that are opposed, like myself.
But do you think that even talking about opposing and those who are in favor of terrorism, have Muslims been quiet for far too long? That's how come this has happened.
Rather contrary to that, we have been speaking.
Have you done enough?
A lot has been done. And they say that is the unfairness of the whole media approach to the whole thing. Very decent-minded, very well-enlightened Muslims have spoken in the strongest of their voice. Like myself in this country, I'm one of those that have been the loudest in talking about peace and so on and so forth. And I think that there are other Muslims who are doing same. There are presidents who have spoken and condemned, terrorism and terrorist activity. And I think that we need to give credit to such people, and then we also must be as inclusive as possible in head-on taking over the issue of terrorism. But to pass a judgment or sweeping judgment on the totality of a population, for me, is one of the most unfair things that we can do. And we should see. I have in dealing with terrorism in the long term, terrorism has a behavioral element. And basic psychology will tell you, behavior is the product of interaction between environmental factors and hereditary factors. Now put aside the hereditary factors and look at the environment. Take Libya, for example. Who is the cause of what happened? Who caused this flow of arms from Libya through a corridor to Mali, to Mauritania, to what do you call it, Niger, into the hands of Boko Haram? What is the state of post-Libyan regime, for example? And I think that if we can look broadly at these things and deal with it, Trump should not heighten the tensions of the world.
Thank you very much, Sheikh Arimayo Shaibu. He's a spokesperson, National Chief Imam, and then Head of Islamic Education Unit at the Ghana Education Service. We're looking at the US President's ban, if it's really a fair deal for the Islamic community.